Thanks everyone for coming. This is a special day for so many of us because Donna Hanson was really just a special woman for so many of us here in this community. We've been looking forward to this day for a long time. I am sorry to say that Sister Donna Markham, the president of Catholic Charities USA, who was supposed to be here today, her flight got canceled. So she did not make it, but she promises she's going to come a year from now when we open Holy Names Haven, which is under construction right now. So she will be back. But we're sorry to not have Sister Donna with us today. Before we get into the program today, I thought it would be a good time just to talk a little bit about homelessness. Homelessness is a hard issue to talk about. It's a tough dialogue. You have to go to some really deep, dark places to talk through it and work through it. And the way you'll know that is try this yourselves in the next couple days. Pick 4 random people, family members, neighbors, co-workers, whoever, and get into a conversation about homelessness. And you'll hear lots of things, positive and negative. You'll hear things that'll make you feel good about it and make you feel scared about it. But one thing I guarantee you'll hear from one of those 4 people is something that's a little unfortunate. You'll hear from one of those 4 people, and maybe even a couple of them, that at some point they'll say, homelessness, you can't end it. You can't do anything about it. It's too big. You know, it's like global warming, or it's like cancer, or it's some issue that just can't ever be solved with peace in the Middle East, or my 12-year-old trying to do geometry. It's impossible. And that's a part of the homelessness dialogue, and that's the language of defeat. That's the language of the enemy. That's not our language. And the reality is that homelessness is always going to be a problem. In some respects, we are never going to end homelessness. As we're sitting here today, someone in Spokane is becoming homeless. I guarantee it. Some woman is fleeing a domestic violence situation. A couple kids are moving into their car with their mother or their father in the Walmart parking lot. Someone with an addiction or a mental health issue is going to lose their job today, and that's going to cycle them into the House of Charity across the street. There will always be newly homeless, recently homeless. We're not going to end that. But there's a difference between ending homelessness and solving homelessness. Because solving homelessness is something we can do, and something we should try and do. And to just assume that we can't ever solve it, it's too big, it's too huge of a problem. Look at Seattle and LA and these giant cities with thousands of homeless people on the streets. You can't do anything about that. Well, the reality is you can do something about it. And you can't solve it all at once. You can't end it all at once. For those homeless kids in District 81, there's 900 of them that are couch surfing, families that are doubling up, families that are struggling in and out of homelessness or motels or apartments or evictions. We're never going to end all of that all at once. But for chronic street homelessness, the people that you see walking around downtown with everything they own on their backs, or pushing a shopping cart with a blue tarp, or talking to themselves, those people, we can solve that. That's not an unmanageable number. We're not Seattle. We don't have thousands of those people. We have hundreds. And we can do something about that. There's no doubt in my mind that we can solve that problem. That language of defeat, that language that tells us we can't do it, there's other language that you might hear when you talk to those 4 people. Someone invariably will tell you, oh my gosh, you keep building these beautiful buildings, you have the House of Charity open 24/7, you're going to attract more homeless people. The food is so good at the House of Charity that people are going to move here from Missoula. It's not going to happen. There's a perception that we're attracting more homeless people the more services we have, but it's just not the reality. Across the street at the House of Charity, we ask people on a regular basis on the front of the lunch line with a clipboard, where were you born? And if you weren't born here, how long have you lived here? About 80% of our folks were born within 70 miles of downtown Spokane. And the ones that weren't, on average, have been here about 6 years. So these are our people. We're not attracting people from other places. Nor should we worry about that necessarily. The truth is, if we did that with the clipboard and we found out that everyone was coming from Alabama and Texas and Chicago because Donna Hanson Haven was so beautiful and there was an apartment there for them. Even if that was true, what I'd say to that, what Donna Hanson would say to that is, so what? They're human beings and they deserve services. They deserve basic dignity. And that's the reality. I see Mike Wilson, former CEO of Sacred Heart, standing over here, and I guarantee you, many years ago when they sat around the conference room at Sacred Heart and they said, you know, should we build a new children's hospital? It's a big project. Should we really do that? And they probably had conversations for years about that. And I guarantee you, not once ever did someone in those boardrooms at Providence say, well, we shouldn't build a children's hospital. We might attract more kids with cancer. That was never said. So we shouldn't be saying it about the homeless or the poor either. The good news is today is a celebration about the fact that we can solve homelessness. Last winter, for the first time maybe in the history of Spokane, almost all of the transient street homeless people were inside. We can shelter all the homeless with 24/7 sheltering, and we can get them into housing as long as we keep building buildings. And the people who would tell you we can't do it, challenge them, talk them through that. A couple weeks ago, I was at a panel with incredible people who care about the homeless, people I've known for years. I have tremendous respect for them. And they sat in a room with a room full of people who also cared about the homeless, watching a documentary about the homeless. And sure enough, it came up at one point that night, Spokane needs, another 11,000 units of housing to make up for the growth we're going to have, and probably about 1,000 of those are going to need to be for homeless people. And the comment came out, you can't solve that. You can't build your way out of that. And I looked around in the room and hear all these people who care about the homeless, and they're nodding their heads. Yeah, you can't build your way out of that. Look at all these pictures along the wall here. I got news for you. You can build your way out. And we're going to do it. And the problem is, why not try? Why give up before we even start? Just try. And what's the worst case scenario? We don't pull it off. But in the process, we got 700 or 800 new apartments for homeless people. In the process, we sheltered everyone at House of Charity 24/7, or Family Promise, or Salvation Army. That's the worst case scenario. I'm okay with that worst case scenario. We should all be okay with that worst case scenario. As we're talking about this, the reality is that today is about Donna Hanson, and Donna Hanson would love this. Donna Hanson would tell you that this is what her dreams were. There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about Donna. And the reason is because I have a picture of her right across from my desk that I stare at every day. When I'm on the phone, on the computer, in a meeting, whatever. And there's not a day that I don't go by that I don't think, well, what would Donna say about this? How would Donna handle this phone call that I'm going to have? What would Donna do? What risks would she take? And half the time I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, Donna would kill me if she said that. But the reality is, I think what she'd tell you is sometimes you got to take a risk for the poor. There are people out there in the business world and in the corporate world, the community, that are taking all kinds of risks and making all kinds of money. Look at Jeff Bezos, look at Bill Gates. They're putting it out there, they're making a risk. Who's out there taking a risk for the poor? That's all of us in this room. That's Donna's dream, that's her vision. And the perfect example of that is back about 18 years ago when Donna decided, well, we needed to build a new House of Charity and a new St. Margaret's. And everyone said, oh my God, you'll never do that. You'll never find a site. The NIMBYism will be terrible. You'll never raise the money. You're going to have to do one at a time very carefully. And Donna said, no, we're going to build them both at once. We're going to raise the money both at once. And she pulled it off. And we have a new House of Charity and a new St. Margaret's as a result. And that's why it's perfect to name this building after Donna. It stands across from Father Bachhaven, the two of them facing each other for eternity. That's exactly how they wanted it. And one of the construction meetings I went to, they had the final surveying plan to come in, and it turns out this building is a couple inches taller than Father Bachhaven. And I mentioned that to Father Bach in the nursing home, and he just growled. But that's how they both would have wanted it. And you know, what Donna had said to us so many times for so many years, people will not remember the things. They won't remember the meal at the House of Charity, or the diapers they got from Kappa. They won't remember the bed they got in this building, or some leaf raking as a senior citizen they got. They won't remember those things. What they'll remember is how they were treated. Were they treated with dignity? Were they treated with hope? Were they treated with by people who said, the language is not the language of defeat, it's the language of joy. And yes, we can build our way out of this. Yes, we can end homelessness, solve homelessness. We can do that if we try. And if we give up, we shouldn't be surprised years from now if we look a lot like Seattle or LA. But we're not going to give up. This community is too good for that. And that's why Donna, I think, would be very happy with today. And I'd like to ask Bob Hanson to come up and say a few words about Donna, and I have a presentation for Bob. Bob?